let's move on several years to the subject of your second volume of autobiography. Can't do the whole bit. Now, you start off with, you were put on trial in 1974 at the Old Bailey. You were charged with, firstly, now a corpse had been taken from a vault in Highgate Cemetery, beheaded, and the headless torso placed in a car park nearby, whose owner made a memorable comment: "I should have known this would happen if I left my car unlocked." On top of that, you were charged with 4 other offences of vandalism at Highgate Cemetery, with trying to manipulate police by sending them voodoo dolls, possession of a gun and ammunition, and stealing bedclothes from Barnet General Hospital.
Yes.
Yes. So...
it's true that I was charged with those offences, yes. It's not true that I committed them.
Alright. So perhaps you could sort of try and sort of lead us through this sort of jungle of strange charges. And I know you weren't found guilty of all of them, but you were found guilty of
well, it's such a complex story. The main charge against me at the onset was putting a headless skeleton. And I should point out the corpse was over 150 years old then. That was in 1970. Vandalism was rife at Highgate Cemetery. I'm not talking about minor vandalism, I'm talking about serious, heavy-duty vandalism, when people were going into, smashing into the old Victorian vaults, actually taking out bodies and putting stakes through them.
Well, obviously, would be Van Helsing.
It was Van Helsing type vandalism, certainly, yes, and all this started because of what a couple of people said on the national television programmes, ITV and the BBC. One particular person went on the programme, and on each occasion he produced a long wooden stake which he had stuck on his trousers. You can laugh. I mean, the interview, he jumped back a yard. And he explained to people how that he thought the seen apparition was really a real-life vampire that slept by day in Highgate Cemetery. And he actually advised to people how they should destroy it. He actually said on the ITV programme, he said the same on the BBC programme as well. To destroy a vampire, the only sure way to destroy a vampire is to stake it through the heart just before dawn, and then cut off its head with the grave digger's shovel and burn what remains. Now, let's just say this. Millions of people on 2 occasions saw this advice being advertised on a television programme, and it influenced, or not only the seriously minded madmen, but it influenced pranks and for going into Highgate Cemetery and smashing open the coffins. I myself, from my point of view, I was actually involved in psychic research and Wicca. That's a form of white magic, nothing to do with black magic. But in those days, I was causing quite a lot of unrest in the local area, and the police, well, on one occasion, all police leave was cancelled because of a duel I was supposed to have with another person. I won't go into that. But the point is that the police saw me as somewhat of a nuisance. I was taken to court no less than 3 times, once in 1970 for hunting a vampire. Let me qualify, you can't actually be charged with hunting a vampire. It's not illegal.
There's no law, there's no statute against that.
I was charged, I was caught at night in Highgate Cemetery. What I was in fact doing was conducting a seance with other people, trying to make communication, psychic communication with this spectre or whatever it was. And for that purpose we get other people with us, but we were arrested by the police. I was taken to court, but I was acquitted at Clerkenwell in October 1970. I'm just mentioning these charges really briefly to give you the background. In 1972, I was again taken to court for conducting a similar seance in a churchyard, Mutton churchyard in Barnet. I was fined, as a result of that case, I and the young lady were fined £10. £10 cost. Well, that was quite a lot of money in 1972. 1973, I was again taken, and because police arrested me with another person conducting a ritual. It was a series of experimental rituals that we were trying to perfect to call back the deity or make contact with the nature deity Pan. I was taken to the Old Bailey and charged with arson because we had a small fire in the room of an unused house, which had already been burnt out by fire anyway. Anyway, the charge was arson, and we were both acquitted. Now, the police weren't very pleased at my acquittance by this stage. So when a corpse was taken from Highgate Cemetery, as I said, it was 150 years old, and it was propped up in a doctor's car parked outside the cemetery. But the thing is that they put it behind the steering wheel, minus its skull. It was obviously a practical joke, though the corpse was supposed to be driving the car. And the only evidence on that against me was police verbal evidence, which was in those days admissible in court. It's not now, you have to be tape recorded.
Right. Well, I mean, I think probably people who are old enough to remember in the 1970s, the Metropolitan Police were notorious for the fact that they couldn't catch the perpetrator of the crime. They would stitch up somebody, convenient person. I mean, there were several cases that became quite notorious. Now,
the whole point is that I was made a scapegoat for all the vandalism in Highgate Cemetery.
Yes. Now, well, there was two particular points that I had to dwell on, because I think I remember these. There was a photograph found in your for possession of a sort of coffin broken open with a sort of no, I'm just, I want my brain back. A badly decomposed corpse. Now that was the one that was actually not in Highgate Cemetery at all, I think.
The police found a photograph in my flat when they raided it in 1974 over the headless body charge, where they thought I was responsible. It was all verbal admissions that I was supposed to have made to the police. They found a photograph in my flat, and that particular photograph was given to me back in 1967 by my first wife. It was given to me, and a fact of plate was taken in Kensal Green Cemetery.
Yeah. So it was certainly nothing to do with you and nothing to do with Highgate Cemetery.
It was nothing to do with the Highgate Cemetery. But the police were trying to maintain this photograph referred to the corpse that had been taken and placed in the car. And it was proved in court because I called witnesses to prove this wasn't the case and that the police were lying. And I was acquitted of that charge.
Look, this trial went on for weeks, so we can't discuss every aspect of it. One particular point, I mean, let's jump to the real point, this headless corpse in the car. I understand in Wandsworth prison you were introduced to a man called Anthony Field. You could explain this.
Yes. Everybody in that prison, it actually wasn't in Wandsworth, it was in Pentonville. They kept moving me from prison to prison because they considered me to be a troublemaker and a bad influence on the other prisoners.
Yeah, and too dangerous to be let out on bail.
Yes, they refused bail, yeah. Again, that was as a result of false statements made by the police. No, I've forgotten your question. What was it?
Well, specifically about Anthony Field. I mean, I know...
When I was in Pentonville prison, I learned there was another group of people in there who were telling other prisoners, and also told them, as they were called in prison screws and prison officers, that they had actually gone to Highgate Cemetery, and it was them that had put this headless skeleton in the architect's or the doctor's car. And the guy actually asked me, because they all knew I wasn't guilty of it, and so did the prison officers, he said, call me as a witness. And he was in prison for he'd just been found guilty, this particular person, of armed robbery. And he'd gone to Highgate Cemetery for a laugh, a jaunt, after the pub's closed. And I called him forward, and he told the court that he was with other people, and it was him that placed this corpse in my car. I was acquitted then, as a result of his testimony.
Right. I think I have to ask a rather awkward question about sending voodoo dolls to police officers. I don't go on to too long, but I really have to ask.
Yes, I did send two effigies to two police officers. The reason being was that these two particular police officers had arrested an associate of mine, interrogated him, asked him, they knew he went to our meetings. In fact, it was the same person who had been arrested with over the arson charge and been acquitted. They arrested him on a completely unrelated matter, nothing to do with the society, nothing to do with me, but they used violence against him because he refused to sign a statement.
Right, I seem to remember he told me, actually I did interview this man, that they'd beaten his head against the wall because he refused to sign a statement, and then they showed him it signed with a cross saying you're illiterate, you can't write, but you just signed it with your cross.
Something like that, yeah. But the point is, he came to me almost in tears. He was really shaken up. On this, he was out on bail, but he showed me his charge sheet, and I got the name of two arresting officers. One was a detective something or other, and the other was pretty high up, off his charge sheet. And yes, I sent them two voodoo effigies with two accompanying notes, letters. And these notes read, oh, by the way, I sent those two effigies by recorded delivery to Barnet Police Station to make sure the police received them. And I signed them, David Farrant. And the notes read, those who harm the initiated will become a victim of their own intentions. Your evil, note the word your, will be returned to you before another month is through.
I don't think that was the most intelligent thing to do from the point of view of yourself, but did anything happen to it?
Look, Gareth, you've got to remember, no, I agree with you. It wasn't, I certainly wouldn't do that now. But you've got to remember when you were younger, or when we were younger, we probably did a lot of things that we regret in the present day, but you can't turn the clock back. You can't just deny it, but I don't pretend that those things didn't happen. But the point is, I was not guilty of something. Well, I don't consider I was guilty. It was in court, it was maintained, even called an occult expert, Francis King, who's now dead, who got several books, to say that the dolls were sent in an attempt to stop the two police officers giving evidence by using black magical means. And the Judge Argyle, who's also now dead, gave me 2 years.
By the way, Francis King, I mean, he wrote one or two quite good books like Ritual Magic and Sexuality, Magic and Perversion, which, I mean, the last one was kinky, but he did actually have quite a lot of research gone into it. But
I don't know about that.
But, I mean, you see, where I was quoting the papers at that time, he seems to be shooting his mouth off about things he knew nothing about. I mean, he was saying there were symbols associated with necromancy. You could have been trying to raise a body from the grave, which in any case was in a vault where there were only ashes anyway, and not any bodies.
Well, yes, and the point is that Francis King was approached by the officer in charge of my arrests, and he was more or less told what to say in court, that he believed that effigies were sent for purposes of black magic.
Right, so the other main charges were possession of a revolver and ammunition. Now, I read about that many years ago. I thought, there's something dodgy about this man, if he's got a revolver and ammunition. Could you...
I don't blame you for thinking that.